Good afternoon. This is the session on the future of quantum. I'm Marie Diorio. I am the president of Nano Canada, and I'm also at the University of Ottawa in the VP Research Office. So we'll start with our panel, and I will ask each panelist to introduce themselves and give us an idea of, in 2 minutes, of who they are and what they're passionate about in their work. So I'll start with Alejandro.
Thank you very much. So my name is Alejandro Adam. I'm the president of NSERC and also a professor of mathematics at the University of British Columbia. So I would say that my first passion, of course, is mathematics, the beauty and the impact of mathematics across all the sciences. In fact, indeed, many disciplines is really what gets me most excited. I was also formerly the CEO of MyTax. In that role, I learned a lot about the mobilization of research and knowledge to apply to companies to grow the economy. And today I'm very excited to talk here about or with quantum physicists, an area which I find fascinating and which is not that far from my mathematical roots. Thank you.
Thank you. Ilham.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me here. I'm Ilham Kashefi, professor of quantum computing at University of Edinburgh, superposed with director of research of CNRS at the Sorbonne University. I'm also co-founder of VeryCloud, which is a startup in France focusing on application of quantum computing. I've been involved in various national quantum strategy building in UK. I'm part of the senior science team of Quantum Computing and Simulation Hub, and in EU flagship, part of executive team of Quantum Internet Alliance. So what I'm the most excited about in my work is quantum, because it's very inclusive, as it will appear during our discussion. You know, I start as a trained mathematician, then become graduated computer scientist, corrupted by physicists, fall in love with experimentalists, doing entrepreneurship and doing now end user applications. I think quantum is very special because it gives us all, and we can have this, full journey, to go from one area to other area. So that's very unique.
Thank you. Shohini.
Hello, my name is Shohini Ghosh, and I'm a professor of physics and computer science at Wilfrid Laurier University. My area of research is in quantum information theory broadly, and I also work in cool questions in quantum chaos as well. I also wear this other hat as the Ontario NSERC chair for women in science and engineering, which is kind of like the Canada Research Chairs program, except there's only just one chair in each of our 5 regions. And under that hat, I focus on my research, but also on promoting and supporting the participation of women in all areas of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And in that work, I actually often get lots of feedback and reactions, sometimes good, but sometimes bad. I get lots of attacks by trolls online, including one that I will always remember, where he called me, "Oh, you are nothing but a quantum feminist." But I love that term, so I guess from now on, I'm going to describe myself as a quantum feminist.
Thank you, Shohini. Amy?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Amy Gunther. My pronouns are she, her, and I am the Deputy Director of the Quantum Sensors Challenge Program, the National Research Council. What I'm passionate about building cool things with my hand, preferably very cool and beautiful things. What that looks like in my day job now is helping build opportunities in 2 different challenge programs for both NRC researchers as well as brilliant folks, academia and industry in Canada, to help go do cool stuff.
Thank you very much. All right. So let's, the way this is going to work is I'm going to ask some questions of our panelists, but if you have questions, I'll be looking at your questions in Whova, and we'll try to weave those into the conversation. So please don't be shy about asking questions on the Whova app. So we'll start with Alejandro. I wonder what you can tell us about the plans to allocate the funding that was announced in the federal budget of 2021. Alejandro?
Sure. So I can tell you what at this point we can say. There will be a formal announcement in the forthcoming in a few weeks. So as some of you may know, on budget 2021, the government of Canada committed $360 million over 7 years to launch a national quantum strategy. Now, the objective of the strategy is to grow Canada's capacity for discovery, innovation, and talent development in quantum research. As you know, Canada already has a significant expertise in this field, and it is very important that we invest now to maintain our competitive advantage in this space. So Canada already excels in quantum, but now we want to take the leap to the next level. The National Quantum Strategy will be comprised of 3 pillars: research, commercialization, and talent. My organization, NSERC, anticipates playing a role in both the research and talent pillars. Now, I do want to recall that NSERC contributions to the strategy will build on existing projects already funded through our strong legacy of support for quantum research at post-secondary institutions across the country. If you look at Canada and the excellent universities we have, many of them have strong programs in quantum research and increasingly applications quantum technology. And of course, the NRC plays a very important role in catalyzing some of those applications. Now, over the past 10 years, NSERC has invested $386 million in quantum research. And we are currently funding over 500 research projects related to quantum through its discovery grants, alliance partnerships, support for Canada Research Chairs, and the Canada First Research Excellence Fund. So I would say that the quantum strategy is like a surge to really get there to the preeminence. But of course, NSERC is committed to funding quantum because it's such an excellent realm of science, which connects with so many different subdisciplines, and which also has these fantastic applications. The mobilization of that knowledge is something which is of extreme interest to society and to Canada as a country. So I would certainly want to encourage researchers to leverage the full suite of programs offered by NSERC and the other funding agencies to support their quantum research endeavors, in addition to any opportunities which will be provided through the strategy. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll look forward to an exciting announcement in the next few weeks, hopefully. Elam, you come from, of course, on the other side of the pond and in France, and you work as well at the University of Edinburgh. I wonder whether you can give us your perspective on, should Canada focus on a few areas of quantum science and technology, or should we really continue to support a wide diversity of approaches and techniques?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think as everybody said, and if you look at all the national program all over the things, nobody thinks that we know what is the winner. So it's too soon to try to focus and say that this is the only area, this is the only qubit we want to have, this is the only application we want to focus. So if we look at everywhere in the UK, in France, in Europe, they are all going with these sort of different pillars, communication, sensing, and computing and simulation. So I guess that's more or less a right approach, especially as we're just hearing that we're still in the mode of building the most important thing, interaction between academic and industry, trying to understand how to address that gap. So having this general area to make sure that we are not missing any expertise is very important. And I guess for Canada, this seems to be quite right, because you have expertise in all the area. It's like if you look at the history over the last, God knows what, 40 years of the field that has been, Canada has been pioneering and has expertise both in academic as well as industry. So it would be a shame to, suddenly right now we want to focus on part of it. Having said that, everybody also are keen to get those impactful aspects. So in the ideal world, when you have unlimited budget, unlimited time, unlimited opportunity, and there is no international competition, you would like to, to make sure this pipeline in all the area goes, but at the same time, building some niche in some area that Canada feels that, they are pioneer. As I said, it's tough because there's a lot of things that Canada is pioneer. It would be very useful. I'm not really answering a question, but if I have to pick, is like, it's too soon to become specialized in one particular area, in my view.
Great. Amy, maybe you have a perspective on that as well, because NRC has a program in quantum sensing.
Oh yeah, we are have 3 challenge programs that are in development right now, either running or in development. And NRC, of course, has had quantum researchers have a good and very impressive amount of work in quantum that has gone throughout the while there. But I guess the real crux here is like, how can we enable better, as you mentioned, collaboration to actually work to push this into actual technology stage, not just on a cool optical lab bench. And that is a hard question that, as Alan mentioned there, no one in the world has truly mastered there. How do we get it from the lab bench out the door? So these challenge programs are what's been going on for a while. The high throughput and secure network program, which I'm the theme lead under there, that's looking a little bit in the quantum comms side there. We've got the quantum sensors program, obviously on sensors, is just beginning now. And budget 2021 is looking towards funding a bit more of the applied quantum computing there. So just moving, so we're looking to move forward in this area there. But this is something that is need to be part of the bigger picture in Canada there. And how can both NRC collaborate well with both the academia and industry to move this forward?
Yeah, and maybe we'll come back to that when we talk about the ecosystem in a little while. Shahini, you already have a question, and that is, where can we get the quantum feminist t-shirts made? So,
I'll get right on that. I'll use my NSERC funding to explore that option.
So seriously, Shahini, if you were designing a funding program right now, how could you build in interdisciplinarity from the very start? Because from what we've heard in this conference up till now, you can see all the various disciplines coming together, and it's very exciting. But how do you actually weave that through a truly interdisciplinary area of research?
I think we have to be quite radical in even exploring what we mean by interdisciplinary. And unfortunately, traditionally, we've always had this tendency to make the boxes and then say, okay, if we cross boxes, that's interdisciplinary. So, physics plus computer science, oh, that's interdisciplinary, or chemistry. Let's throw in some, other areas and build something interdisciplinary, which is perhaps, it's a one approach, the quickest way to combine different fields. But to be really interdisciplinary, I think we have to think about doing away with the boxes entirely, as in what if we start with the goals? For example, we want to perhaps build that better sensor, or we want to think about improved security or communications. And starting from there, how do we build? We would want to build a program where we develop the criteria, the application process in a way, the evaluation criteria as well, in ways that would be focused on the goals and also on how best to bring in the right team. So teamwork, I think, is obviously going to be key to anything that's interdisciplinary, because we can't be an expert in every area. And when I say every area, and we really start thinking in that way, if you're talking about improved communications, let's say, or even using quantum computing, let's say, in the future for drug development and healthcare, so important these days. The one thing we've learned, I think, in the last 2 years is the importance of things like public policy, education, science communication. Those are the people who need to be part of these kinds of teams. There's no way we can be one person as a PI can be an expert in everything. So this PI driven model perhaps is not the right way to go at all. So a funding program would need to rethink so many of these issues, and to even build the program would require us to bring in experts in those areas. we've, especially in physics, we think that we know everything in all areas. We tend to like to be problem solvers, but there are actually people who are experts in various things, such as building policy and, creating a project management sort of approach to building a funding program, things like this, and communication. So I feel those are the people that really need to be at these kinds of conversations. So maybe next year at Quantum Days, we can have that as an entire session. I'll leave it there for now. I have so many other ideas, but.
That's great. Any other comments from our panelists on this question?
I just love to support the team building because, of course, exactly as you said, that we sitting here as like the successful PI, but I just want to take the opportunity, like everything we present is actually the team of the students who are coming and exactly build up that conversation. Because those programs doesn't exist, what do we do? I'm pretty sure in any academic team you look, there's physicists, there's mathematicians, there's computer scientists, even some of them are having some artistic view, some communication view, and that conversation that I've seen how cross-boundary, when they work together and naturally, organically bringing out, they come up with creativity that nowhere from the topic could have pushed out. So I totally second what you say, Shaya, that like we need to change this model, especially because of quantum, because we want to make this journey to quantum technology is no longer just breakthrough, which should continue. But if we are serious about this passage to take, as we said before, from the lab to the industry, then we need the whole pipeline. And it's become like running it like a company, running it like, an entrepreneur will run a company. So we need all together put our effort to make it happen, because it takes, it is, as people say, it takes a village to raise a kid, and it takes a whole ecosystem to raise a useful application. So we need to bring all those elements together.
Mm-hmm. And maybe I have a question for Alejandro in that line, and that is, we see that some of the programs like the New Frontiers of Research, actually that's built in, right? You have a pass and fail on interdisciplinarity, a pass and fail on EDI. Then you have, what it is that you want to do, and do you foresee that that's going to be also something that's going to be part of the funding for quantum, that really building in this interdisciplinarity in the project plan?
I think modern science is moving towards interdisciplinarity on different fronts. The New Frontiers and Research Fund is meant to be sort of like a piloting beginning with the three councils working together on that. And we're very excited by the first round of grants in the transformation stream. And we have seen those 7 projects that were funded. Very interesting, very transformational projects involving all sorts of different disciplines. I think the key thing for me is we're not being prescriptive. We're not saying that disciplinary isn't good, but we're saying come together, work together, bring your talents, right? And work on interdisciplinarily on projects, on challenges that matter to society. And even for a very abstract mathematician like myself, that gets me excited. How can I contribute? And that doesn't mean that I'm not working on my own kind of very abstract research at the same time, but I'm really part of an exciting team, and my own experiences in working with physicists, they do half the talking, I do half the talking. We don't necessarily understand each other, but the student puts it together and lo and behold, you have a paper. So young people as transmitters of this interdisciplinarity, I think that's where the future lies.
Mm-hmm. Just to follow up with that, like I completely agree. Like the interdisciplinary is the way we need to go here. But one question to just for the crowd to think about, and especially because if the young students are going to be the ones who are the true interdisciplinary crossbreeds here, as they go out throughout their career, do we have systems in place that are going to be able to reward them for those types of efforts, especially since different fields have different types of metrics and what are defined as success? This is, of course, a really challenging question, but it might be something that in looking towards the future of quantum in Canada, we may need to start thinking about.
Yeah, and we have a question from our audience here that says that, how do we draw such a diverse subject matter experts into projects? Because we'll need ethicists and psychologists, designers, all kinds of people. And, we have to build up that community to work with us, right? And what's the best way to do that? Maybe it's a tall order as a question, but
it's a little bit of, you already mentioned it, so he said that like to some extent, individual project, we don't need to, for each project, bring everything together. That would be an artificial interdisciplinary building. You could define, okay, in this particular project, it could be even short term, not necessarily in term. We want to focus on, let's go back to the security. We want to enhance the security. Then immediately you need to have the people who are involved to understand in the classical sector, you understand what are the pain points from industry coming, be able to show to bringing the people who have been building this thing in the classical domain of the security, so we are not reinventing the wheel, and then bringing the expert from quantum, probably hardware, probably solution. So I think if you're a little bit defining a concrete goal and project, could be like even very big blue sky research. We want to get the best fault tolerance scheme for a new architecture. That will bring different type of interdisciplinary. So I guess being able to create the quantum readiness, as Amy was saying, that like that education is there. So the young people, are already educated. And then depending on which project you want to go, you will feel the expertise. I think that would be the right way of bringing people naturally together.
There's also the acceptability or the acceptance of the technology by society. And, we've learned from other technologies being brought, without consultation, perhaps with the end users, have been rejected and certainly at the beginning of nanotechnology, there was a GMO experience, and there was a lot of thought into how we have to be conscious of that, and we have to work to make sure that not only is there acceptability, but that the technologies that we're going to come up with are going to be accessible, that there is no barrier to the users for our technology. And that's something that takes a long time to build. So do we have an opportunity now to build that into our projects? And that's in a sense a natural way of bringing in experts, right? That are from the social sciences and policymakers, etc., right? Do you see that as something that is pertinent to quantum technologies?
I think so, because as Alejandro mentioned, like we have the National Quantum Strategy is 360 million over 7 years. This is a finite dollar amount here, especially in comparison to a lot of other stuff going on along the world. This is perhaps an opportunity, right? Because we want to find, efficient ways to move quantum technologies from the lab bench or from the theorist computer, to the end user there. Maybe this is a more expedient way, is to integrate those teams better with the end user, with the policymaker ahead of time there, to make sure stuff isn't going to get caught up in, some weird export border control thing. Like, just this is now the time to bring people together to learn how to speak the same language. We already had mentioned today, this is complicated, this interdisciplinary stuff. Like this, we do truly speak different languages here, but this might be an important area.
Okay,
I'll just add that in the last year or so, I've actually had the chance to attend online, of course, some conferences outside of quantum in areas like international relations and of course social sciences and education. But these are conferences where there are sessions on the impact of quantum in the future, the impact of AI in the future. So I think these are things that I would strongly encourage others in our community to try to attend, because it's actually really a lot of fun and fascinating to listen to the discussions. You learn a lot, but you also get a lot of new ideas. And that's how we sort of step outside of our comfort zones, understand what are the big issues and questions that perhaps we haven't thought of. That would be good to think about. And I think the reverse would also help, where we invite people from those communities into our conferences and get over the language issue, as Amy correctly pointed out. It is possible, and it's led personally in my own research. That it has expanded my research topics, and now I have all these amazing collaborations with political scientists and educators and musicians even, and artists. So it's much more fun.
So Shohini, you hold the chair for women in science and engineering at your university, and I'm wondering, do you have a perspective as to how to lower the barrier, for equity, diversity, and inclusion in quantum? Right? Are you pursuing certain approaches in reducing those barriers?
Well, yeah, it's a very complicated, question, which is why after many, many years of many initiatives to fix the equity problem and the diversity problem, we still haven't really, moved the needle too much. And the reasons for that are, again, as I said, there's multiple reasons. The parts that I think are specific to quantum going forward, if we want to build, a larger, more inclusive community, has to start in classrooms, of course. That's the first step for the future. So part of what we know is that classrooms are not as inclusive as they should be. There's definitely different roles that are assumed for boys versus girls, skill sets that are assumed for boys versus girls. But the good news is that all the research shows that there's no actual difference in terms of the skills required for fields like quantum. So this is a solvable problem. And this is what I mean by bringing in social scientists and expert educators who already have been dealing with this and thinking about it. So imagine if we could build classrooms where we are in fact engaging everybody to their maximum potential. And in the process of that, we're going to automatically see that there might be, students who normally would not consider quantum would now start engaging with that. For example, one of the big barriers, as we know, is this idea that, math and physics is, somehow not for everyone, and it's a particular type of person, and you have to be a genius, and so on and so forth. There's lots of well-tested approaches to try to address this in the classroom. A lot of this is about perception, and perception is actually possible to change. Behavior is actually possible to change. There's lots of studies. For example, there's the Draw a Scientist famous test, right? Where everybody initially draws a crazy looking man in a lab coat, basically Einstein, yes. So, but studies have shown that you can change that. You can switch it by having different examples, role models, representation, and over time, you can change that perception. And it's not that hard because, we are actually quite easy to manipulate people. So let's use all of this kind of techniques to change the classroom environment. And of course, not just leave it at that, it has to follow through. And we also work on, figuring out what's happening in work environments. Are we providing equal access to funding? I know NSERC now is keeping a lot of that kind of data and monitoring to make sure that, there's no biases creeping in on the funding side, on access to awards and medals, for example, promotion opportunities, career opportunities, equipment. There's so much that goes into building a career. And at every stage, unfortunately, there has been a problem with equity and access. So I think if we can really start deliberately addressing every part of these issues, which are well documented and are actually possible to change, then of course we can get there. That's what we're trying to do.
I want to come back to the issue of international competitiveness, because of course other countries have a national strategy. Some are moving very fast, others are putting a lot of money in. And is there a way for Canada to distinguish itself in that on that international scene, either through the collaborations that we strike or through this multi-pronged approach of taking not only the science into account, but all of the other issues that you've just talked about? And you have a perspective on that.
Maybe I jump here because I want to say that, we should not forget that Canada has started way, way, way before everybody else. I was the first postdoc almost ages ago, coming to Waterloo when nobody else was still talking about quantum ecosystem or quantum computing. So I think if you look at the number, obviously this number is not at all competitive with the other numbers going through. But if you look at the base of what is already in Canada, we should not undermine that. If you call the biggest scientists in the field, Canada is high rank. If you're talking about very successful industry and company that have been around, again, Canada is there. When you took it like a training program, starting for quantum, it has been always there. And of course, it's like the grass of the neighbor is always greener. You might feel like, everybody's just doing more, but I can tell you from France and UK, we think, wow, Canada is doing great. And they have an amazing ecosystem and the application development is quite great. So I think that's something probably from outside, when I look at it, is really the pioneer of the field, and the base of the science is so strong in Canada. So clearly keeping that base, making sure that pipeline is never dried out, is continuing, expanding it, is very attractive, all the university, all the education system there. And there's another uniqueness, the CDL program. Again, I experienced it because my own startup gone through it and we were so happy to go through it. So there's all this other initiative on the industry side and all the creation of the spin-off and successful company. I don't want to name a few, but everybody knows them a lot. So it's a matter of it seems just the bridging in between Canada could be very pioneer, because some other company national program need to build those ecosystems first and then try to link it. Whereas now Canada seems that all the element pieces of the puzzle there. So if the national program will create this translation, this ensuring this bridge that we have been talking there, I mean, it's clearly could be leveraging that. And then this gap to making sure the culture of creation of startup, culture of, translation to applied science is being there. So, I mean, and everybody loves Canada. So talking about international, everybody wants to work with you guys. Everybody wants to sign a new MOU with the Canadian, whether it's Sherbrooke, whether it's BC, whether it's Calgary, whether it's Waterloo. People want to be part of this. And because Canada has been in between place. It's North America, but it's not North America. It's Europe, but it's not Europe. And that's yet another great advantage of the collaborative system to work. So,
yeah. Alejandro.
Yes, well, indeed, I think Canada has some incredible universities, very strong, and very strong research base. In particular, I'm very proud that at NSERC, our biggest envelope is discovery research. We're supporting the blue sky discovery research, because it is not for us to predict what the role, how science will go. It's the scientists and the ingenuity, the big ideas. And if you look at areas where Canada is leading, for example, AI and quantum, a lot of that started through discovery research grants many years ago. So, we also have the capacity then of doing what seems like an intervention when these areas take off, to then find a space to give them funds for excellence, for mobilization of the knowledge. So I think Canada has what I would say is an excellent system to accomplish that. The concerns or the weaknesses perhaps is in growing the companies that come out, right? We can build startups, but scaling them, I think, is the challenge that the government always talks about. We have a pretty good supply of talent in terms of lots of foreign students that come. A lot of course, Canadian students are also nurtured, but we always have to keep growing that and making sure that our students are properly supported and in a competitive way. That's one of my main concerns, that we be competitive in terms of attracting that human talent, those great junior researchers, because in the end, they're the ones who will they're the ones that will build the shiny objects, right? The shiny objects don't come by themselves. But indeed, in interactions with international partners, quantum is one of the very top products that Canada offers, and everyone wants to sign an agreement on quantum. And in particular, at NSERC, we have an international stream in our alliance programs, and we have signed agreements with UKRI. UK, we had some wonderful projects that came out there with the European Commission, and very recently with the National Science Foundation in the US, very strong interest in that. So I think we have to be very smart in terms of upping the game, keeping our investments, but also playing the game where it's not just about the dollars, right? And that's really partnering in the right way and being shrewd about how we do it. And the more economic aspects of growing the companies, that of course is a challenge which has to do with venture capital, etc. I'll leave that to the experts who are working on that.
One aspect of the international piece here, so we have a lot of great stuff going on in Canada for the, as we've seen in the talks yesterday, today, and a little bit tomorrow there. But one thing that we can be smart about with our international agreements and our collaborations is, can we, we bring our great stuff to the table, but can we also enrich our own students with those pieces of knowledge that they have out there that's only in perhaps in other labs around the world. The international partnerships are definitely an opportunity for Canada to increase our talent.
Mm-hmm. So this morning we heard from Ray Laflamme about the quantum ecosystem, and there's so many interesting things that are going on. Last week there was IBM announced its partnership with Quebec, putting a quantum computer here, and then CMC has a project, to strengthen the semiconductor manufacturing that will benefit quantum and other fields. It's all part of the ecosystem, and yes, we have these very strong regional ecosystems, but we also need to weave that nationally, right? And so what could we do better in when we go outside of a country? How do we present Canada, right? There's so many things going on, and yet it's we need to present a one picture, one voice, and so are there elements of this national ecosystem that we're missing in your view?
Alejandro,
you're
on mute. Yes. I
yeah,
had to say that once.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. There's some noise here. So the National Quantum Strategy is, I think, an attempt to create coordination. I think what it's nice is that it's grassroots based. It could have been top down. Mm-hmm. So you say, well, we know the answer to everything, bring it all together like that. But no, the researchers, they had dialogues, it was real consultations. So it's emerged in that way. Now, Canada has a very special way of working, kind of a confederation model in science. I see it all the time. We have our colleagues in Quebec, our colleagues in BC, in Alberta, and they all kind of work in different ways, right? And it's many times very friendly collaboration, other times they're competing, but it's building something which is, I think, very unique and very strong and very special, very respectful, and trying to do something which is like unified, sort of old style. I don't think that is what the Canadian system wants or actually needs. I think we do need some coordination, some clear goals, but I think that the quantum strategy is a big step in that direction. And similarly, there are strategies in Pan-Canadian AI strategy, Pan-Canadian genomics strategy, and there are movements to try to coordinate that better. So absolutely we can do better than that, but there's a lot of richness in that style where different players are making different contributions.
Mm-hmm. I will just follow up with that. Like, I completely agree. Coherence. Quantum is about coherence at the end of the day here. If we've talked about, so get the startup through that valley of death there. It is hard for some of these folks to navigate this complicated system, trying to get funding here, get funding there. Oh, I need this much to be eligible for that. If we can, as different Canadian, both provincial and federal, and even our regional development areas, be a bit more coherent with each other, we can maybe help the companies move, and the academics to help get the technologies from their labs moving forward there. this is something that us at the Quantum Sensor Challenge program, we're starting to think about now to make friends with our other peers around us here. You know, so say a project comes in through our program here, and they have do 3 years collaborative research. What next? You know, is there ways we can be smart of, you know, if stuff gets to a certain technology readiness level, would it be ready for a different type of challenge program or a different one there? And you know, small things like that, I think, could leverage our dollars in Canada.
Mm-hmm. And you founded a company, and so maybe you can tell us a little bit about the challenges that you face as, you know, being both a researcher in quantum technologies, and also being an entrepreneur, right? And how do you bridge those two worlds?
It's simple. I have the most wonderful co-founder, you know, Mark Kaplan, Josh Nunn. You know, like when you have the right team, it's back to the team. I have an amazing team of co-founder, which allow us to delegate, you know, to define. And I have an amazing team of researcher who are actually excited and supporting this thing. So it's, as mentioned before, I'm extremely lucky that I have the team, and, you know, we are able to clarify what sort of topic of question we want to explore. Is very academic, so we can explore them with the student, with the postdoc, at the research part of it. And the moment, and in fact, I will translate, the challenges become like opportunity. The moment that we feel this problem is actually becoming interesting and there is a port, we know that the first company to look at, which is our own company, to reach, or even through that collaboration, we have started to learning a little bit how to, you know, make the gap between endpoint, which we learn from through the industry, compared to the research problem is go there. And it's very important, indeed, we discussed it. Everybody should have their place. There are students who actually love to be able to focus on that fundamental research, and I would be able to enable them do that. There is no reason for you go. And then there are problems. Some students who want to get their hold of IBM and write the code and do something. And some of them actually wants to, before, you know, patent something and jump in the company. So I think the more of creation of those opportunities created actually our team, you know, more attractive, because you can come and fit. So what's the challenge is learning. It's like, you know, it's not just the fact that, you know, because I'm a professor, I knew how to do it. So when I started the company, when we go through the CDL, we have been grilled by all the other academic, because it's a new journey. So the challenge is, you know, to be all the time open-minded and be humble, to know that you don't know everything. When we started the business 4 years ago, you know, my father-in-law was making fun of me when I was like putting our business plan forward. But of course, you need to learn it. So I think the challenge is opportunity, that there is a lot of things to learn, and not to be ignorant that it's going to be easy like that. No, it is, you know, go back to the root and, you know, learn the business, learn the concept, learn the new language of how to talk to the end user. And these are the things that we need to address all the time if we want to go through this cycle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's interesting that you bring up end users, because perhaps in quantum, you know, there are low-hanging fruits, quantum sensors perhaps, and there are technologies that will take longer to develop. So the opportunity to speak with end users now, rather than, you know, the technology push type thing, is really the pull. The opportunity for a pull is here, and it may be communities that are quite different from the scientific community, maybe the financial community, the banks, and so on. So having ways to promote that conversation, that dialogue is an important element in our ecosystem as well, right?
I would say that, you know, is absolute perfect timing as well. So, because, you know, I'm coming from that background of a mathematician that we don't even want to do applied mathematics, that, you know, because it's not pure enough algebraic. But, you know, with the age, you become wiser and you become more aware. And what I want to emphasize over the last few years, when we had this opportunity talking to financial sector, talking to hardware token designer, they actually raised a very interesting question, this end user pain point, that when we took it back, it became a research program. So I have an example of those things, that those questions would have never come out of my brain because I wanted to define a mathematical problem. It came because of a roadblocker that an end user asked, and then we make a research out of it. So I think is actually very unique that in quantum, we have this field that the science is very, very relevant. You know, we have not reached the technology readiness that is all now about translation. I don't know about many other fields, you know better about your field, nanotechnology, but we are still really much in the making. So the more those conversations we have, the students are excited because they can formulate it and bring it back and make a very, very interesting fundamental question about it and put the cycle back again. And after that, then push it there. So it's a really good time to start having those conversations.
Mm-hmm. I wonder about whether, you know, there is space for citizen science in quantum. So in other fields, that is actually another thread in the science journey, where citizens can, you know, write code or you know, monitor different heavenly events and report them. What would that look like for quantum, and is it part of the quantum future? Anyone wants to try this one on?
I guess I'll jump in. I think it's something that's already happening. For example, IBM and, you know, the other companies are offering, you know, free access to some level for people just to try out what's it like to program a quantum computer. And that's perhaps not going to lead to something, let's say, useful and usable, like, you know, classifying galaxies or whatever. But it's a first step towards a bigger conversation with citizens, of course, which is how will this technology be used and impact us in the future? Who has access? Who owns it? How should it be used, for example? So those kinds of questions could be answered once everybody starts engaging with the technology. But there's also possibility for citizens to be involved in research. I remember a few years ago, there was this fun game that was set up, a quantum game, where it was really an optimization problem disguised as a game, where there was some goal where you had to move, I think, a coffee cup and without spilling the coffee or something at the right speed and on a slope, which was like a potential, I believe. And anybody could play the game and try to win it. And that was a form of getting data to try to figure out what is an optimal route through some kind of a landscape. So it is possible to be creative, to translate the back-end, you know, mathematical approach into something that's usable and still really interesting for people to engage with. And part of that requires, of course, designers and creative thinkers, maybe even people who design games, for example, to be involved. But that's, I think, a whole area that is largely unexplored, but there's a lot of potential.
One thing I love about quantum is now, yeah, because this level of accessibility there, anyone could go, you know, code a quantum computer on the cloud. Right. And I think this is something that we should harness in the future a bit, right? People are being trained to be familiar with quantum and to do things with it. Do all of us need to be PhD physics or math nerds who solved a particle in a square well? Like, I don't know, maybe not. Like maybe that we have a talent problem, or the pipeline is a problem around the world here. Like maybe this, you know, keep getting on board with, you know, getting it out for everybody there. Maybe a lot of different types of training programs can just take that level of, you know, personal experience as a prereq to get into some different types of jobs. I think John Hepburn mentioned a little bit about this yesterday in the training there, right? Like what are the actual requirements, right? And do they all match some of the different stuff that comes out of our current training systems?
And Elam, I think you had mentioned when I spoke with you that there are some European programs, right, that engage citizens.
Yes, so I don't know what I was mentioning, but there are a particular activity like RRI, Responsible Research Innovation, that is trying to do that, but that's the ethical issue. But there are also these quantum readiness. This is something the National Quantum Computing Center, which has been recently launched in UK as being the united front to be there, is exactly trying to aim that, essentially the program is that you need to make industry, general industry, to be quantum ready as we want, and you want to make your quantum scientists to be industry ready, if you like. These are the sort of the approach that people are saying that. So the conversation reaching out is on both sides. Just coding is one aspect, but also be able to understand how to go as well. So yes, there is part of almost all the training program that we are seeing in the EU that to trying to push it lower and lower, and exactly not necessarily go at the level of PhD, because we would have the shortage of the thing. So there are all this training that already at the undergraduate level, we could have the program that is, producing people could already ready to go and have the quantum conversation, as we can see it from AI, for example, that, you don't need to necessarily go all the way to the end to be able to get involved. Expertise is important, technicality is important. We cannot ignore that, there's still the discovery need to be stopped, but delivery of the part, definitely citizenship program that you're saying could be very, very helpful.
Mm-hmm. We have a question, and Alejandro, I'm going to ask you that one, and that is, we haven't really changed the success metrics for research. It's, it's the same, the publications and patents and how many students you train and so on. But as we look at more interdisciplinary programs, more collaboration, is there a move to start changing the metrics to reflect this new reality of how we need to work and to solve the big issues of our world?
Yes, there's a whole discussion about that. There's something called the DORA, Declaration of Research Assessment. So it's like a new thinking as to how research should be assessed. And the three councils are signatories to this. So it's really about evaluating the impact of research in a broader way, in a more holistic way. Now, that doesn't mean that, we're like dismissing people's articles or papers. That's fine, but that's not everything, right? It's just like not linearly ordered with a person writes 100 papers and that's it, no questions asked. No, there's impact as to the value of your work, the value of the collaborations, of the students you've trained, how you have trained them, and how your work is making a contribution to solve important challenges. And it's very much work in progress, because how do you evaluate that? Many times it takes years and years to see that, a person's best work really was something which, wasn't so obvious. And of course, the evaluation of scientists is done by scientists themselves. And we have to do a change of culture to get those panels, those committees to kind of embrace this broader thinking. And universities also should, I think, be more proactive about encouraging people to do these kind of things, going out there, doing services, the educational mission, etc. Right? If at your university, your yearly activity report is just list of papers, list of students, or whatever talks, then you're done. Well, that's not conducive to is thinking outside the box and really building the kind of scientific ecosystem that we would like to see. So it's a point very well taken, and it's very much a work in progress.
Great. It's great to hear that. Other comments from our panelists on that?
I guess a little bit of another changing culture that is happening, again, unique to quantum, is that now we have seen researchers who have come from their PhD, they have went and worked in a startup, they did a great job, and the startup, most of the thing they were delivering in a concrete thing, and they came back and they secured a position in the academic. So this has been, of course, this is very typical in maybe some area, like again, artificial intelligence, etc., that you have a strong R&D, but in quantum, this transition is also a good signal in that direction, change of culture that Alejandro was saying, that like university are already appreciating it, especially now that we're all talking about we want to create a talent program that is preparing the student to go back to the industry. So who could be better than a person who already have been in this industry, have been successful in that, and to be attracted. So I think this is a little bit, I see few recent hiring in various places that they are completely open. Whereas a decade ago, you would have seen that I got to the industry, that's the one-way street. It's no longer the case. And I think that's also a good sign that we should encourage further.
That's great. And since this panel is about the future of quantum, and the future of quantum are the students that are in the field right now. If someone asked you, a student, undergraduate student asked you to some advice, and they're fascinated by the field, what should they study? What would you tell them? What advice would you give them?
Be open-minded. With quantum is a superposition of all the possibilities. So explore the whole parallel world. Do not, collapse your wave function. Try to honestly, this is the way that I went through this journey. I had no particular thinking about it, and it has been full of surprises. So it's very important to be open-minded, not to fall under that you're a physicist, you're experimentalist, I'm a mathematician, I'm a chemist. I think try to be as inclusive as possible, and define, your own vision. The field is very young and it's still, full of surprises. So I think by all means don't worry too much about your career. I heard in previous panel that people were saying worried that whether the field is going. When I started my PhD, I was making sure that I will get a proper degree because I was sure this field will collapse because qubit was some vector people were writing on the board. I would never imagine that I'll go and fund a company in the field of quantum. So I'm pretty sure we cannot predict it. The field of quantum is a horizon field. It's not just one field that will die or survive. It is influencing all the possible technology, engineering, our thinking part of it. So I think the future is bright, and we just need talented, open-minded people who are happy to take it to the next stage.
Mm-hmm.
I'd follow that up with the advice I would give is get into science communication. The skills gained from talking to different audiences, whether they be to kids and families, like Let's Talk Science. There's many organizations across Canada that allow soapbox science, that allow you to do science communications, because gaining those types of skills will be, maybe the thing that really will set you apart. You'll know how to take that really complicated quantum mechanics and be able to explain that to an end user. And this is especially pertinent right now because the hype in the system is ridiculous. There's a lot of promises out there that the quantum's going to do this and that. Like, to be, as an undergrad, just be able to accurately say in understandable language, this is what it's going to be like. That is going to be super useful. Now, it's actually been a key part of my career pivot post academia was again to science policy, which is effectively science communication on steroids. And this has been I found this to be very useful.
Yeah, I would say to a student, it's about the skills that you acquire and how they can afterwards be transferred to other settings, because it's not so much just the certification of those skills, but really acquiring them and knowing them. And of course, we know physics, math, and the other skills that have been talked about today, but there's a great premium in society for some of those less than fashionable skills, hard skills. Okay, you guys know physics, I don't know much physics, but math, things of that kind, but then being able to mobilize those in smart ways, right? But that you can take to when the next fad comes around, right? You're there. So I'll never forget one time when I was head of the math department, the head of the physics department told me they were hiring 50 new graduate students for the upcoming year. I said, well, what are you going to do? These guys can't get jobs in academia. Physicists can be hired to do anything. They're just so smart, and we teach them everything. So if they have to solder things, they can be engineers. So that kind of rich knowledge, the physics tradition, now gone and imbued into society, I think it's a wonderful thing. It's one of the great accomplishments of humans interacting with nature. So kudos to all the quantum physicists. working so far.
That's great. And Srini, do you want to
Yeah.
comment?
Yeah, I'll say two pieces of advice. First one is you don't have to actually get a PhD in quantum physics to contribute to the quantum future in Canada. Definitely not. And I can tell you that over the last 10 years now, I've been teaching a course on quantum computing for students who only come into the course with linear algebra. That's it. And from there, they get to a point where they are programming on IBM Quantum and dreaming up new projects and thinking about algorithms. So there are different levels at which you can even engage, quite deeply with the topic. And not to mention that there's so many other parts, as we discussed, to building that ecosystem, such as the communication of it, the usage of it, the ethics of it, the psychology of it, that all of those allow possibilities. It's not often that you get the opportunity to be on the ground floor of this whole new area where every piece is a new area to go. It's like being on a new planet and exploring it. So that's one thing. And for those who are perhaps from underrepresented groups in STEM, I'd like to also say that you are not alone. You might feel like you're isolated, but that is the single biggest reason that women and students from minority groups leave the field. So I think it's a key step to find a group, find your support systems, whether they are other students, whether they are organizations. There are women in science organizations, for example. There's a Black Scientists in Canada organization. There are many similar organizations, and these are very, very important to provide you with that support structure and the tools and the resources to be able to engage in the field, because the reality is you shouldn't need that kind of support. But let's be honest, we are at a point where we need to do much better to create that inclusive community. And until then, find your people and find the support, because in the end, it's teamwork, both inside your research teams as well as just generally to build your career.
Thank you so much. And we're out of time. So I want to thank our wonderful panel for this discussion this afternoon and for your perspectives. Thank you so much.
Thanks to all. It was a pleasure. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.